We start this what if off pretty normal. I mean, we don't do anything extra. The only real difference at the current moment is that Azuku was not born to Inko, um, and whatever Azuku's dad's name was. He was born to Endeavor's family with his brother Todoroki. Him and Todoroki were twins and came out at the same time. But Azuku had black hair and blue eyes, and Todoroki had one blacker eye and then a blue eye. Immediately, Endeavor thought the world of them and loved them both. So he took them around and played with them a whole lot and, showed them love for the first couple of years till they turned 4. The day they turned 4, he took them away from their birthday party, saying he was going to give them a present, but drove them to the quirk doctor. When he drove them to the quirk doctor said that he was going to have to run some tests. So after it's been about an hour or two, the doctor has finished with his tests and has, had a full analysis on their quirks. First, he says that Todoroki's quirk is the ability to use fire and ice in tandem, except for the fact that he needs one in order to stop the other. So if he uses too much ice, he'll die, and if he uses too much fire, he'll die too, unless he uses his ice to cool down his body temperature. So, yeah. The next one, he looks over to Azuku and says, well, your other son, Azuku, has the abilities of called the Black Folding Flames. And immediately this shocks both Todoroki and, both Shotos. Because Endeavor's immediately like, what's going on? And he's like, it's a new quirk that hasn't manifested yet. It's called Black Folding Flames. And he says, what? So you mean to tell me my son can generate black flames? And he says, yes, and they appear to be hotter than normal flames. And he says, why is it called folding flames though? Yes, it also appears that he can morph his flames into shapes. And it's like, oh, that could be interesting. But eventually, the hype dies down, and Endeavor's like, okay, whatever. So he takes his children back home and immediately starts to train, like the same day. He immediately starts to train Todoroki and trains Deku too. He has no problem with training Deku, but Deku's flames for most of the time weren't actually black. So Endeavor always got disappointed whenever he saw this, because whenever Deku would activate his quirk, his flames wouldn't be black, and Endeavor always saw that as a sign that Azuku wasn't taking the training seriously, which is one of the reasons why Azuku was kind of like handled a little rougher than Todoroki, because Endeavor always thought that Azuku was just being difficult on purpose, to get in Endeavor's face, even though he was 4 years old, so he wouldn't even know how to do that yet. But that's what he thought was going on, so he was just a little bit rougher with him than he was with Todoroki. And Azuku and Todoroki were both put into normal schools because of the fact that they didn't want them to be overconfident in their abilities, and they wanted them to see what most other people who have quirks are like. So Deku and Todoroki are in the same class. Todoroki's a lot more not fragile, but he's a lot more, comfort zone oriented than Izuku is. Izuku has no problem talking to people, shaking their hands, and being, just being whatever the way he is. He has no problems doing that at all. But Todoroki kind of is shy and kind of hides behind Izuku because of the fact that he's just a little bit like, scared. Izuku has this kind of personality, almost like Bakugo, but not mean all the time. Just like the outgoing part. He's not afraid to talk to people and interact with others, even if it's for the first time. Which is why he catches the attention of Bakugo. But in this story, something different is Bakugo is actually a girl in this story, which is why she catches his attention when she sees how like strong and like, well, not strong, but how calm he is when he's around other people. He doesn't have a problem talking to people and making friends. And because of the fact that he has a quirk and also that he's kind of rich, because his dad is like one of the top 10 heroes, she immediately like, kind of senses that he's just like really cool dude. So she goes over to talk to him, and everyone gets quiet because even as a girl, Bakugo is still like kind of like a force. You know what I'm saying? Like a force. She bullies the other girls and the boys, but she didn't like the fact that Izuku was like taking all of the spotlight, cause she had her own goons, but like everybody was kind of cool with Izuku and was like, oh, like by the end of the day, everybody knew Izuku's name, and he was already friends with everybody. So this really like upset Bakugo because of the fact that she was supposed to be the star of the show and her spotlight was getting stolen. So the first thing she did was she challenged Deku to a fight. Now this is when they're in like middle school. They're both like 14, 13. Basically like when they were like in canon, when Deku went to school, like wherever that was, however old he was then, that's how old they are at the moment. And all of that other stuff with the hero and like and with the hero and the applications and the UA thing and introduction to UA as a concept, that's all been like done already. This is the end of the day, and she challenged him to a fight. Todoroki kind of was like, by this point Todoroki has lost that shyness, but he's not a good person per se. He's just kind of cold. So he kind of looks over to Deku and he's like, you coming, bro? And he's like, give me a minute. He's like, I'm not gonna wait on you, so alright. And basically Todoroki kind of gets in the car and tells the dude to wait. He says he's not gonna wait, but of course he's gonna wait. And Bakugo asks Deku if he thinks that he's stronger than her. And Deku answers the question by saying, why don't we find out? And she immediately rushes towards him with her explosions, but Deku easily dodges and grabs her with his flames. But he kind of made like the entanglement scarf that Eraser has had out of his flames and grabs her with them and immediately wraps her up. And then basically says like, if you move, I could crush you to death, but more importantly, I could burn you to death. And she immediately kind of like, her eyes widened because like he easily contained her and like defeated her with ease, and it wasn't a struggle, it wasn't hard. He just immediately kind of destroyed her. So she kind of calms down, and he understands when she understands when she head nods, and Zuko releases her and she drops to the ground. On those way back to the car, she tries to ambush him by doing an explosion to the back of the head, but Izuku just disappears. And then Todoroki sighs, saying, poor girl. And Izuku basically disappeared out of sight because Izuku can use his fire as propulsion, but basically if he condenses all of the fire that he can produce from his hands, basically into like 1 second of fire. He can basically make it so he can travel a great distance with only like minimal effort. So he basically made his own flash step. If you understand it, then you understand it. So he basically used the flash step to get behind her, and he grabbed her by the head, and like basically, well, he put his hand on her head, and she tried to spin around and hit him, and he dodged and flipped back. And he told her that he wasn't gonna hold back anymore if she was gonna keep trying to hurt him. And she says that she understands that she's not holding back. She tries to go at him with another punch, but Izuku easily dodges it and then trips her up, and then wraps her up again and kind of leaves her there, and then says, "I'm not gonna fight you," and basically gets in the car and they drive off. But by the time they're already like on the way to the house, like 10 minutes away, and Izuku finally releases his fire bonds, which he calls it. And basically, she just starts screaming because she's angry at like how easily she was like defeated. Her mom eventually comes to pick her up because of the fact that it's like late now. It's kind of late, but her mom was getting worried because of the fact that she was supposed to have been home like 30 minutes ago. The fight was like only 10 minutes, but then she was basically held captive for another 10 minutes, so it's been like 20 minutes. So she basically was supposed to get home and around this same time, but she wasn't there yet. She was taking longer. It was going to take her another 20 minutes to get back home because of the fact that, she was late. So her mother came down the street to try to, see where she was at, and she picked her up. But yeah, not much really happens after that. I mean, the training for UA goes pretty much the same for the 10 months. Nothing really extraordinary happens until we get to the practical exam. The practical exam is supposed to. President Mike basically says Deku listens really, really deeply and like hears President Mike, like before he even talks, he hears President Mike's mouth move, and then he immediately goes like and is gone, and goes straight for 3 2-pointers, and then just starts eradicating most of the robots before anyone else can even move. And everyone notices how fast he is because of the fact that he immediately disappears from sight. Like, it doesn't even look like he moved. And he just goes ham on all of the points, and eventually just racks up 200 points easily, but stops and decides to not fight anymore because of the fact that, he really doesn't care. He's already had enough to pass, so he was just going to speed back to the beginning line and then just, wait for the test to be over. But eventually the test went on to a certain point, and then the 0 point appeared, and he saw that there was a person who was stuck underneath the rubble, and it was Ochako. So he was like, people are always getting in my way. And basically he zoomed back off, and he basically ran on the side of a building and jumped off and put both of his hands together, palm to palm, and then opened them slowly, and everyone just kind of saw this kind of fire blade manifest, and he grabbed it, and he basically extended its length till it was taller than a 0 pointer, and then just sliced the 0 pointer in half. And he used his fire bonds to basically grab Ochako and lift the rubble off her, and he even put her ankle back in place because it was dislocated. So he put it back in place, and he cauterized it a little bit. He didn't actually use fire, but it was just kind of warm, so it wasn't going to let any, bacterial infections into her body. So, because she had a couple cuts, so he didn't want anything to get infected, so the fire was going to kind of protect her from any bacterial infections. And basically, I forget her name, but basically the medics come and take Uraraka and heal her with their quirks. Recovery Girl does it. Yeah, Recovery Girl does it, and basically that's the end of it. And everyone except for everyone, including Endeavor. The only one whose jaw isn't dropped is Todoroki, because Todoroki completely expected this because of the fact that, he was he pretty obviously knew how strong his brother was, because of the fact that his brother was like stronger than Todoroki by quite a bit. He easily dispatched the 0 pointer with like no problem at all, and it didn't even take any effort. And all of the heroes were dumbfounded because Deku easily dispatched it with the swiftest of motions, and he had so many points, and it was just like, wow, what is this kid? And even Momo's jaw was dropped, because she was not expecting that. He easily, by the time everyone else had crossed the finish line, Izuku had already gotten all of the points he would need to pass. So, he was already like leagues ahead of everyone there, like by leaps and bounds. So he basically goes back to the starting line and, kind of just chills out. And that's when he gets like kind of this, they all go back to kind of like a central area, and basically all of the participants are told, it's kind of like this stage kind of thing, and President Mike is just kind of talking, and he's like, basically he kind of says, everyone from this section, if I call your name, then you pass the test. Everyone who normally passes the test in class 1A is there. So yeah, Bakugo was in a different section this time. She passed her test too, and she was gonna be put in class 1A, and she kind of just gives this like really really mean, like kind of grin, like not a grin, but like kind of glare towards Izuku, and Momo's just kind of looking back at Izuku like, that kid's strong. And basically nothing happens until they go back to class, and when they go back to class and Izuku walks in, immediately Ida tries to rush over towards him, but immediately Izuku disappears before Ida can even get a word out, and is already at his seat. And everyone wonders where Izuku went until they all turn around and see Izuku at his seat. And everyone wonders what just happened, and except for Eraserhead, because he actually saw Deku move and was able to perceive him at his current speed. So, he kind of just blitzed past everyone. And basically, Aizawa then, like, after thinking about it, like, oh, so this is the kid who's supposed to be really strong. We'll see about that. And basically, Aizawa gets up and tells everyone to settle down. It should have took them less time to get quiet. This can't happen again. And then he basically tells them that they're about to go outside and they're about to have a quirk examination test, their first test of the like UA. And someone random says basically, what about orientation? And then he basically says, I don't care about orientation. I can do what I feel like. If you have a problem, you can leave. And then presses a button, and everyone's gym uniforms basically pop out of like the ground. And he tells them all to go to the facilities to get changed. And basically, when Izuku goes to get changed and he's by his brother Todoroki, he gets approached by like a whole bunch of people. First off, he gets approached by Ida, because Ida's wondering. Ida asks him how did he know that there were hero points, and also Ida asks him how did he get so fast, because he doesn't have like a very physical or like quirk related speed quirk. So how did he get so fast? Kirishima asked him how he was strong enough to slice the 1 pointer in half, the 0 pointer in half, which he easily did. And he basically like doesn't answer too many questions. He answers Ida's and Kirishima's, but then stops. And basically Todoroki is asked as well if he's just as strong as his brother, and Todoroki basically looks at Deku, and Deku looks back at Todoroki, and Todoroki kind of says, yeah, he is. And then they say, oh man, we got 2 strong people in our class, we're never gonna succeed at this rate. And then they go and do the quirk test. Izuku basically averages on on the grip test and the jump test. No, he passes a top 10 on the jump test. On the grip test, he does average. On the speed test, he passes first. And on the ball throw, he also gets first because he used his entanglement his entanglement ability and basically grabbed the ball and sent it flying. He basically used it like a slingshot. He basically spun it like a wheel and then used the momentum of spinning it in order to send it flying. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end the video right there. I think this was kind of a productive video, I guess. But yeah. Bye.